Good afternoon, and welcome to Lakeview, and welcome to the rededication of the John Merlo Library. My name is Tom Tunney. I'm the alderman here, and I want to thank you all for coming. We have members of the Merlo family. We have residents, and due to the social distancing, we had to not invite as many as we could. But we're glad you're here, and this day we have been waiting for a long, long time. I approached at the time Mayor Emanuel a number of years ago about recommitting and renovating the library. This library was built, I believe, under the FDR administration with a WPA program. Not as old as you are, John, but we'll get there. And it has shown its age. I remember in the early 80s, there was a renovation at that time, and now it is being renovated again. We all know that libraries are such a great public treasure and have evolved into community centers. So it's really exciting to be able to walk through these library halls again and open up this library and the world of opportunity that libraries bring back to our neighborhood and our community. We are surrounded by schools, close to the Nettlehorst Public School, and immediately west is the Our Lady of Mount Carmel. And trust me, they have been asking for months about when their library is going to be reopened. So it's really exciting to be here with our mayor. And I do want to give a shout out to Mayor Emanuel because he did provide the bonding mechanism that saw this day. But if it wasn't for Mayor Lightfoot, we wouldn't actually be standing here today. And her follow-through was imaginative, and we're just so thankful for both mayors to make this happen. It's really a privilege to at this time to introduce Joan Merlo, who is the daughter of Jack Merlo. And before I introduce Joan, I do want to say that and to thank former Senate President John Cullerton. If anybody after the press conference wants to know more about Jack Merlo, not only his family is here, but his political family is here. But I just want to say anecdotally, while Jack Merlo was a state rep and a senator, he was the alderman of the 44th Ward and they used to call him the reluctant alderman, I think, John, because he got promoted to be the alderman. So when I first came and took over the business, Ann Sather, my attorney, who was my cousin, said, get yourself settled and just go down and meet the alderman, because an alderman can make or break a community. So I had that opportunity, it's 40 years ago, I believe, to meet Mr. Merlo. He was the alderman for a couple more years, and then Alderman Bernie Hansen became our alderman for, I think it was 20 years. And I am just on that final lap of 20 years myself, I should say. So we have been blessed to have strong leadership in Mr. Merlo, Mr. Cullerton. I know our state senator, Sarah Feigenholz could not be with us today, but we do have our state rep, Yoni Pizer, today. But we have such a great team here and people that have served this community long. So I'm going to ask Joan to come up and speak on behalf of the family, and then I'll come back and introduce the mayor. Thank you. Joan?
Thank you all. As Alderman Tunney said, I am Joan Merlo. I'm the youngest child of Merle and Jack Merlo, but they are letting me talk today. Mayor Lightfoot, thank you so much for being here. It is such an honor, and thank you for leading our city in this crazy time, which I don't think you knew what you were signing up for. But I'm so glad you're in charge. I bow to you. Alderman Tom Tunney, you mean the world to Lakeview, obviously, your service and leadership. And on behalf of my family personally and me and everything, the gratitude we have for you taking on and completing this project of the library. I feel like in these times things seem impermanent, but now I feel like, well, I think the library is going to be here a little longer for our community, and that's a wonderful feeling. John Cullerton, so good to see you. I don't know the state representative, but I'm sure you're doing a great job. As I get older, I realize more and more how great my parents were, and I want to tell you a little bit about my dad. My parents, both of them, were fun, they were elegant, they were smart, they were involved, and best of all, they were down to earth. They did not put on airs. But you need to be more than just a great guy to have the library named after you. And my dad, he was a great guy, John Merlo, but he was also a great public servant, and dare I say a great politician, because that was not a dirty word when I was growing up. It was a job. Politician was a job, and he took it seriously. He was inclusive, he was fair, and he liked helping people. I think that was his main motivation in politics and in life. He was a big man. He was very tall and large. He had a big heart, he had a big mind, and he had a lot of personal authority. My dad had a way of saying, now look here. And you know what? Maybe like you. People listened to him. And Jack Merlo liked politics. He loved it. He enjoyed it. And he was good at it. He was a terrific strategist. He liked being known. And he liked knowing people. He liked walking out the door and being like, hey, John, hey. He liked people. And he liked the platform that politics gave him to serve and help people. But he never took politics or any office he held for granted. He worked at it. He listened to people. He found out what they wanted, and he worked to form alliances to get good legislation passed that would help the people of Lakeview, and that would help the whole state of Illinois. He earned his office every day. And when it came to elections, pause. Oh, this is gonna be. When it came to elections, when it came to elections, Jack Merlo always ran like he was gonna lose, and that is probably why he never did. He was ahead of his time. He believed people needed hope. He thought education was paramount, and he was much more about what he could do for you than what you could do for him. I have a little slip of paper on my dresser written in his handwriting, and it says, words from the heart go to the heart. And whenever he had to get up and talk, he wrote that down and he thought about it, and that's the way he tried to approach talking to people. So I hope I have done justice to my parents today and gone from the heart and gone to your heart. On behalf of my family and myself, we are so honored that we're all here, and we're so grateful that you're honoring our dad. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. And I know we have an extended Merlo clan here today, so after our press conference, we'll be able to walk through after the mayor goes through. So without further ado, our mayor, Lori Lightfoot. Mayor?
So thank you so much. Thank you, Alderman Tunney. Thank you to the Merlo family. Thank you, former President John Cullerton. And thank you, Sarah Feigenholtz and my friend, State Rep Yoni Pizer. I have the privilege of traveling all over the city. And I think a lot about strong, vibrant, healthy neighborhoods. And I know that one of the most important and vital things in having a neighborhood that really, really is strong, where people have a place that feels safe, where they can go and they can gather and they can get information and they can get supported, those are neighborhoods that have libraries. Now, I have a special love in my heart for libraries because that's where I met my lovely wife, who spent a significant amount of her career working to support Chicago Public Libraries. I have a special place in my heart because of my friend and our commissioner, Andrea Telli, who grew up in our library system and now has the privilege of leading dedicated men and women. Librarians are special people. They truly are. You know, there was a time not that long ago that people said, well, our library is really relevant in the digital age, now more than ever. And I knew that as part of our reopening, one of the most important things that we could do is bring libraries back online because of this central role and trusted role that they play with people all over the city. So I am extraordinarily excited and grateful to be here today. This community is so strong and vibrant and led by great leadership. This is a community that is engaged and involved. When I was campaigning for mayor, I actually had to be put through my paces at a community gathering in this library. So it has a special place in my heart. And I also want to give thanks to our great Public Building Commission leader, Karina Sanchez, who you'll hear from in a moment. I want to thank Carol Ross Barney and her team of architects for their latest contribution to the fabric of our city and the redesign of this library. And again, thanks and thank you for sharing the story of your father. It is an honor to be a public servant, and it's a big deal to have your name forever emblazoned on a library, which are so important to the lifeblood of our city, as I've said. And it says something about the testament of the public servant and the politician, that his name will forever be linked with this important library in this neighborhood. A lot of things have happened over the arc of this work. And now the Merlo Branch Library has a new early learning space for children. That's critically important. And a new dedicated U-Media space for teens. Again, something near and dear to my heart because my wife, Amy Eshelman, helped create the concept of the U-Media and open it up for the first time in a Harold Washington library, and now as a model, not only here in Chicago, but across the country, as a place for teens to gather and really be able to pursue their passions in their out of school time. And on top of that, the Merlo Branch will have digital skills training available to patrons of any age through the library's Cyber Navigator program, another program that was started during the tenure of Commissioner Dempsey and when my wife was at the library. All of this comes in time for a summer learning challenge that Commissioner Telli and the entire Chicago Public Library will be leading, which is part of our citywide My Shy, My Future initiative to connect our young people to their passions and their interests. As mayor, it's always a joy visiting neighborhoods and to announce a new improvement like this one or an investment. But that joy is always a little bit special when the investment is around a library. My love of reading and learning really started early in my life, and it was at my local library in my hometown in Ohio where that love of learning really took hold and was really nurtured by the librarians at my local library. And going to the library and checking out books meant being transported to places and ideas totally unlike my current circumstance. And the magic of that trip still exists for our young people today. It gave me the ability to explore my own restless curiosity, but also to imagine and dream. And as some of you might already know, my family didn't have a lot of money growing up. And so the library was truly a gift to me. So it was there amongst those library shelves. And yes, I got shushed by the librarians more times than I can count. That's where I fell under the spell of books and storytelling, people, places, and events that all serve as personal inspirations for me today. I still hearken back to those times, and I'm transported to a place where me and my friends, when we were out doing other things, we always made time to visit the libraries. These are more than just places to check out books. They now serve as our community anchors and meeting places, our early learning and job training centers, our digital support spaces, and places where our city's immigrants can learn about their rights and build a path to citizenship. And above all, our library system democratizes, and let me emphasize that, our libraries democratize information and opportunity by being a place where your income, your zip code, your personal circumstances don't matter. If you got curiosity and the ambition to walk through the doors, the library is your university. It is your job-finding center. It is your place of respite. That is the important place that libraries continue to play in the vibrant fabric of our city. And that's what the Merlo Branch is for Lakeview, and what countless other libraries are for our communities across Chicago. And I look forward to joining all of you again and again in the months and years ahead as we continue to make more investments in our public libraries. And look, I got to give credit where credit is due. When Rich Daley became mayor, many of our libraries were decrepit. They were little storefronts. They weren't inviting. They weren't the kind of places that I've described and that were really the places of my youth. He transformed our libraries into one of the best systems in the world under the leadership of Commissioner Mary Dempsey, and that tradition is now carried on by our great library commissioner, Andrea Telli. It is a blessing and an honor to be part of a city that places such value on learning and invest in our neighborhoods through our libraries. We know this, the data's there. When libraries open, they are a game changer economically for the fortunes of neighborhoods. And I'm grateful for the investment that's been made here, and we will continue to make sure that our library system is strong and vibrant because our residents deserve nothing less. So thank you, and with that, I'll bring up Andrea Telli.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for your words and your passion and your support. Thank you, Alderman Tunney and the other elected officials, as well as our beloved forever librarian, First Lady Amy Eshelman. So we've still got a seat warm for you up at the office, so that's good. Alderman Tunney has been so steadfast in wanting to get this new and improved branch open for his community. Even in the midst of our shutdown, he was sure very often to remind us how important this building was for Lakeview. So I'm so happy to be here for him and for the Lakeview community, and indeed for all of Chicago, to cut the ribbon or open this beautiful new facility. And I'm looking forward for this to be a new era for the Merlo Branch under the leadership of our new branch manager, Michael Conlon, over there to my left, and with our dedicated and talented staff who are all standing behind there. In addition to the beautiful design, both inside and out, we're also very, very proud that we've made improvements to our collection with expanded LGBTQ+ material, as well as the 21st century features that Mayor Lightfoot mentioned, including U-Media, a maker lab for school-age children, and a completely redesigned children's area to focus on play and learning. These spaces will enrich and engage our patrons in reading, learning, and discovery. Our library programming for kids and teens kicks off this Monday, July 6th, as part of the My Shine, My Future initiative to give kids of all ages a healthy fun and safe activities during the out-of-school time. You can still come to your branch to register for our summer learning challenges for kids and teens, and of course to get materials. We've got books, we've got make and take materials, but also check out our website at shypublib.org for virtual programs and for programs that you can actually bring home. So we're seeing our shutdown, and we're seeing this situation is really being a glass half full. We can have programs in person, and then we can also extend the library outside the walls of the library into your own home. With Mayor Lightfoot's support and encouragement, Chicago Public Library has been proud to be a national leader in safely reopening our libraries. We were among the largest libraries to open. We are so happy to be able to open this location at a time when access to information and resources is more important than ever. Welcome, everyone, to the new John Merlo Branch. And so now it is my pleasure to introduce my partner and my dear colleague, Karina Sanchez, Executive Director of the Public Building Commission.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is truly a pleasure and an honor to join everyone here today as we celebrate the opening of the modernized and renovated Merlo Branch Library. I do want to take a moment and thank Mayor Lightfoot, Commissioner Telli, and especially Alderman Tunney for their commitment to this project. None of this would have been possible, and it wouldn't have happened if it wasn't for their leadership, their dedication, and perseverance to ensure that this project became a reality. So thank you. The goal for the development of this project was to design and create a welcoming and flexible space that provides access to library services for residents of all ages while responding to the current and evolving needs of its patrons. I want to thank Ms. Carol Ross Barney, our architect of record, for doing a phenomenal job on the design and helping us succeed in that goal. The new and improved Merlo Branch features Chicago Public Library programming such as, and I'm sure you all heard of it, an Early Learning Center, U-Media Digital Media Lab, as well as meeting, community, and study spaces. The PBC was able to do this without completely tearing down and rebuilding the facility. This was due to a high-quality, original design, and essentially good bones that allowed us to make the repairs to the building's exteriors and the facade. In particular, through the removal of the glass atrium installed in the 1980s, the project featured the restoration of the 1940s facade closer to its original condition. You will all enjoy it as you walk in. This work showcases the original decorative panel above the front entrance. The exterior renovation and repairs also included new windows, the removal of security cages, as well as masonry tuck pointing. In addition to the front entrance, it was enhanced with the installation of a new vestibule, monumental stairs, and a handicap accessible ramp that will allow for full access by all. The PBC also upgraded the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems, installing new furniture and equipment. Now, as the executive director of the PBC, my job is also to ensure that we are not only planning, developing, and constructing quality facilities throughout the city, but that we are also having a direct and positive economic impact in the community that we serve. This is achieved by establishing goals in all of our contracts for community hiring and for minority and women business enterprise participation. This is what highlights our true role as a public developer for the city, and it makes our city a better place to live, work, and raise a family. I am proud to say that this $6 million project boasted a 32% MBE WBE participation and employed a number of minority journey workers, apprentices, and laborers. The Merlo Library Modernization and Renovation Project presented PBC, along with our partners, Ross Barney Architects, and of course, George Solid Construction, the opportunity to develop a striking architectural, community-specific design to serve as a hub for the vibrant Lakeview community. So thank you all for affording us this opportunity and to be part of constructing a well-designed, high-quality renovation project, and we hope that the community enjoys their new facility as much as we enjoyed building it. Thank you very much, and I think now we will be officially open as of 2 o'clock today. So thank you.
Now I'm happy to take your questions. I believe you're the poll reporter today, is that correct?
That would be me. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor. Tanya Francisco from WGN. I know during our conversation this morning in our morning meeting, violence tended to dominate the questions as from a lot of my colleagues around the city, so I'll just start and I'll just group the questions accordingly. Mike Flannery at Fox 32. Why, after declining for a few years, is the number of shootings and killings now returning to previous levels?
Well, I think that's a complicated question to answer, but look, the reality is that we have, in some ways, the perfect storm, which means the worst possible circumstances. We have almost 3 months of COVID-19, where people were compelled to stay inside. We have a concern amongst many about the spread of the disease. We have some of our law enforcement partners have not been fully online because of their own concerns about the risk, the jail, the courts, the federal partners. And what we still see, though, is the underlying root causes of violence, and that's poverty, lack of hope, despair, not enough access to really the things that we know build healthy and strong families and communities. Those challenges remain, but they're all being kind of compressed in the same set of circumstances. And you've heard me say this before, we have way too many guns on the street. So we have been very actively engaged with all of our partners. I mentioned the other day that I convened a gathering of, I think, really important stakeholders, the state's attorney, Chief Judge Evans of the courts, Leroy Martin, who's the presiding judge of the criminal courts. We're in conversations with our federal partners, as well as Sheriff Dart, but all of us, as well as community-based organizations. I do not and never have thought that you can solve the issue of public safety with law enforcement alone. That's been a strategy. That strategy's never worked. So we need our partners to be part of this mission. But I'll also say this. I think in this time where we are definitely challenged, there's no question about it, each of us needs to think about what we can do to help in making sure that our communities are safe. I alluded to this before in my opening remarks. Putting resources and investments in neighborhoods goes a long way. Making sure that people have the same access to jobs, to health care, and all the other social safety net offerings that build healthy and vibrant communities. That goes a long way. So we have to do better. The status quo obviously is not working. I don't want to wake up again and hear more news of another child who lost their life to gun violence. But we all have to dig down deeper. We have to put our arms around these children. We know who these folks are. It's not like some outside force comes into our neighborhoods. These are people that we know on our blocks. And I think for those kids who are on the street, we need to reach them before they become the next trigger puller. But for those who do commit violence, for those who don't really value the sanctity of life, they should have no shelter anywhere. And I understand it's a big ask to say to folks, look, the person that you know down the street that just sprayed the gas station or the block, we need you to step up and turn them in. But that's exactly what we need. We cannot break this cycle of violence if everybody doesn't do their part. And people know who they are. They know who the shooters are. There are safe ways in which they can turn people in. But let's stop the violence before it even starts by making sure we're investing in our young people and we're loving them and supporting them at the earliest possible stages of their life so they understand that there's a future for themselves that isn't wrapped up in gun violence and gang activity. That is a challenge, I think, of our city, of our communities, and we've all got to be invested in taking up that challenge and saying, I will do better. There's a lot that we can do as a city government. We announced just last Friday our initiative for the summer, focused around our young people, focused around connecting them up with resources in productive ways so they can pursue their passions. But I need the moms on the block. I need the block club presidents. I need the members of the faith community. I need the people who are doing street intervention, and I need families. I need families to do their part as well. This won't get solved without a holistic, all hands on deck approach. And that's what we are encouraging. That's what we've been doing for the last year. And obviously we made a lot of progress last year. Now we're challenged again. Now is the time for us as Chicagoans to rise to this challenge. We need to meet this challenge head on.
Franz Billman from the Sun-Times writes, as the number of murders soared in June, there was a huge slowdown in police activity. Arrests were down 55%, traffic stops down by 86%, street stops down by 74%. How do you explain that? And the FOP said police officers have returned to a defensive crouch because they don't believe they have your support.
Yeah, that's easy for the leadership of the FOP to mouth those words because we're in what they know are going to be really, really, really tough contract talks. And I'm committed to making sure that we win for the residents and the taxpayers of Chicago. So you're going to hear a lot of sound and fury, but we're committed, we're going to stay focused, and we're going to make sure that that FOP contract, just like we did with the sergeants and lieutenants and captains contract, that FOP contract, for the first time in our history, is actually going to speak the values of the residents of Chicago. So you're going to hear a lot of noise from the FOP. That's part of the game, but I'm focused on making sure that we get wins at the bargaining table for the residents of this city, and we will do that.
Are you afraid that the police officers are pulling back?
Look, I'm not seeing that, right? And let's think about what June looked like. What was June? June was this month of significant civic uprising. So what were our officers doing? They were making sure that people could safely exhibit and express their First Amendment rights all over the city. The first 2 weeks of June, we had probably 5 to 10 marches every single day. So yeah, they weren't making traffic stops, and they weren't making a lot of arrests because they were busy in making sure that the people that are out in the streets in their righteous indignation over the murder of George Floyd were able to express themselves safely. But here's what I also know. During one 10-day period in June, our officers took almost 600 illegal crime guns off the street. Now, I don't know about you, but what I know is you can't take that level of guns off the street, which is a historic number in a 10-day period, unless you're doing your job, unless you're putting hands on folks and you're taking guns off of people who would do harm in our streets. So to judge June out of context and not throw in there, by the way, these guys are hustling and doing a lot of work, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Also, 2 questions on this. Kelly Bauer from Block Club, do you think Superintendent Brown's plan to sweep drug corners and arrest young people will prevent the violence we've seen in recent weeks? This tactic has not worked in the past.
So let me be clear about what the superintendent said. And this is shades of like Larry Hoover from the 1990s. What these drug enterprises are doing is this. These spots, they can earn $30,000 to $50,000 a day. They're extraordinarily lucrative, which is why they're literally willing to fight to the death to keep those spots. But cynically, and this is what the superintendent was saying and why he's frustrated, they put young people out on those corners. Young people who should have more productive things to do, that we need, the very people that I was talking about, that we need to reach and we need to redirect them. Those gangs who, they're not out on the street. They're reaping the bounty, but they're putting these kids out on the street to do their dirty work. Kids who have a future, kids who have a life, they're putting those kids out on the corner. So we've got to do something to stop that from happening. And that means going up the food chain and getting the adults who are responsible for these heinous crimes and putting them behind bars. That's what the superintendent was talking about.
So you're not concerned about the civil liberty groups that have a problem with that?
If any civil liberty group has a problem with people who are killing our people over drug spots, let's have a conversation, because you need to have your attitude readjusted. What I'm talking about is we've got criminal enterprises that are using vulnerable young people. We all should be appalled by that. And I think they are. But we all ought to be, because that's wrong. No child should be manipulated in that way. And that's about, again, us building up this ecosystem of support around our young people so they actually have hope and healthy choices and alternatives, so they don't feel like the only life they can lead is being on the corner supporting somebody else's criminal enterprise.
Moving on to former Superintendent Eddie Johnson, the video was released. A question about, will you release the full IG report into that investigation?
No, the law does not allow us to do that. I know there's been a lot of chatter among the media that is anxious to dive into the reports, but look at what the statute says. The statute says unequivocally no reports will be let out unless, and there's one exception that we put in last year, which is unless there is a felony and it's a public interest. Now, obviously, there's a lot of public interest, but there's no felony. There's no felony that's been identified. We've looked at this 20 ways from Sunday, and as a lawyer and my team, many of whom are lawyers, we value our law licenses and we are going to follow the law. We put out what we can put out. We'll put out some additional materials, but there's nothing under the law that allows us in this circumstance to put out the reports of the Inspector General. I know that makes people unhappy. I know there are going to be people who are going to write articles saying, oh, the mayor, blah. Doesn't matter. We're going to follow the law.
Should the law be
Last
changed?
2 questions.
We changed the law just last fall to even allow us the opportunity to do that. We are not going to cut and paste what our law is because the media is unhappy. We're going to do the right thing to make sure that we are transparent with the public, and the media is going to have to live within those boundaries.
All right,
Last 2
we'll
questions.
We'll move on to COVID. Chuck Gowdy with ABC7. The I-Team has been told that FEMA officials have concerns Illinois is at a risk of resurgence because of recent upward blips in cases in late June and surrounding states with new problems. Is that true, and are we?
Well, look, I mean, that's a whole lot of speculation baked into one question. Here's what I know. Every single day, we look at a very specific set of public health metrics. We look at hospitalizations, we look at ICU beds, we look at number of people on ventilators, we look at the amount of testing that we're doing, percent positivity. These are all the metrics that we've now been talking about for weeks, and what we see in Chicago, and I can't account for the rest of Illinois, as we continue to be on a downward trajectory day over day, week over week. If we weren't, we wouldn't be opening up. Now, we're looking at this literally every single day, multiple times a day. If we see that we're heading in the wrong direction, I'm not going to hesitate to take action. But folks, again, please, members of the media, educate yourself about the facts. We put out so much data on our website, chicago.gov/coronavirus. You can see this for yourself real time every day. Just educate yourself and ask the right questions. The information is right there. Every single day since the beginning of March, we are out putting out this data. It's not hard to figure it out, but whipping people into a frenzy over speculation about other places when you're not bothering to actually look at the data in Chicago, that's not helpful. And that's not aiding the public in its ability to understand what's going on. So I will encourage everyone, go to our website, chicago.gov/coronavirus. It's updated every single day. All the information that you need about where we are as a city in the arc of this pandemic is there. And let me just say this, we still have a lot of COVID in Chicago. We still do. It hasn't disappeared because the sun is shining, it's a nice day, people are outside. We still are seeing people every single day die from COVID, and we're still seeing cases, new cases. That's a reality. So what do we need to do to make sure that we continue trending in the right direction? We need to make sure that we wear face coverings in public. It makes a difference. It will save lives. We need to continue social distancing in public. And in other spaces where we can't easily social distance, you need to avoid those. If you are 60 or over, you need to think about whether or not it makes sense for you to be out. If you have an underlying medical condition, again, you are most at risk of catching COVID regardless of your age. And so people need to continue to follow the guidance. But the most important thing is social distancing and wearing a face covering in public. None of us are immune. All of us are at risk. And what happens in our city really depends upon each of us taking responsibility and ownership of this moment. And this moment is still, we live in a world in which a pandemic is ravaging our communities, our cities, our region, our state, our country, and our world. And whether or not we can continue to make progress depends on all of us.
Last question from Kelly Bauer with Block Club. Do you intend to issue an executive order to shut down General Iron through the coronavirus pandemic? Why or why not?
So, Kelly, as you know, because of the explosion that happened at General Iron, that facility on the north side is not operational. We're still in the midst of doing our investigation. Once that investigation is complete, we will issue a report that will be public, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.